Awesome. Thanks. We've reached quorum. My name is Regina Sinsky-Crosby. I am chair of the PB Parking Advisory Committee. This committee advises the city of San Diego on the best ways to implement parking programs within the Pacific Beach Community Parking District. Discover PB provides administrative support, financial management, logistics, office space, staff support, and other services as needed to meet City Council Policy 100-18. To continue following the Brown Act, today's meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube. I'll have more on that in the chair report. So our committee goals are to improve safety, access, and mobility within, to, and from the community, develop parking mobility and mobility strategies, to encourage multiple modes of transportation, including walking, biking, and public transit, to support the needs of residents, businesses, and visitors while recognizing the diversity that occurs within these groups, and to identify sustainable revenue sources to support investments in Pacific Beach and transportation infrastructure improvements. Because we're governed by the Brown Act, we follow Robert's Rules of Order. If you're not familiar with them, just keep in mind the 3 F's of fast, feasible, and friendly. I hope to be done by 7. I'm pushing for it. And there's 2 number 8s on accident in this agenda. There's 10 items. So I'll start with the roll call. Introductions will serve as a sign-in for committee members. When I call your name, please state your neighborhood quadrant or the community group you represent. Jessie.
Hi, Jessie Beckman, PB Planning Group, Streets and Sidewalks.
Tim. Tim is with Discover PB. Brian Curry.
Yeah, Brian Curry with Pacific Beach Town Council.
Jane Knobs.
Jane Knobs with Pacific Beach Town Council as well.
Paige Hernandez.
Hi, Paige Hernandez, she, her, hers, and I'm with beautiful Pacific Beach.
Billy.
Billy Ramirez with Discover PB.
John Kokoza.
John Kokoza, Southeast District.
Let's see, Katie Matchett.
I'm Katie Matchett with the Northeast District.
And Sunny Lee, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Sunny Lee. I'm with Discover Pacific Beach.
Thank you, all of you. This is a big meeting week for people active in the communities. Oh, Gordon, sorry.
Just playing Gordon on the minutes now.
Sorry, Gordon. You are important. There's a lot of Zoom fatigue happening right now. So thanks for being here, everyone. I really appreciate it. Non-agenda public comment. Please raise your hand if you wish to speak. You have 2 minutes. Gordon, there will be an opportunity for board members to speak next. And I am looking for raised hands. I don't see any. If you have any feedback you'd like to give, there's a form on pbparking.org. This is a great way for us to keep a record of who has feedback, what types of feedback they have. For example, we want to know if people want residential parking permits. It's just great to have it on record. We can put it in a spreadsheet that's searchable, and then we can also reach back out to you.
I got a non-agenda one. So recently I saw on the news that 2 people on this committee were sponsoring a homeless encampment parking lot within the Mission Bay district. So I just was wondering if we hadn't heard about that in this district, if it falls under Pacific Beach or Mission Bay, and the 2 people responsible for that could give us a heads up on, what they're planning to do with that, because having a permanent homeless encampment right next to Pacific Beach, I don't think is a really good idea. We already have enough problems. And if you participate in the police task force meetings that have been going on, they are completely overwhelmed with dealing with all the homeless people, vagrants, transients, and drug addicts on the streets. So providing a permanent spot right next to Pacific Beach for them is definitely not a good idea. So if somebody could just address that.
Thank you, John. We can't address that in a non-agenda public comment or committee member comment. As one of those people that you mentioned, I can say this is not within Pacific Beach Parking District. It's not even within Pacific Beach. And I'll be happy to answer your question offline. If you send me an email, we can have a discussion. Any other committee members with comment?
Am I okay now?
What I miss? I was in the waiting room for a little
Oh, hi,
bit.
Adam.
Hey,
Adam, do you have any committee member comment?
it sounds like we're talking about this safe parking lot that's being proposed.
We're not discussing it here, but you're welcome to share comments on it.
All right. Well, I think we've all, here's my comments. I think we've all done a lot of work that's been very transparent. And to find out about this the way that I found out about it, I didn't think was the best way to show our transparency on this board. I feel like it's jeopardized pretty much all of the work that all of us have done over the past several years. Quite frankly, San Diego's got a credibility problem. It's got a transparency problem. And that's what we're taking on head on here. And this, which you just said, is not even in the district, but is going to directly affect our efforts on this. I think it's extremely short-sighted. We should get one thing done before we go on to something else. But again, it's just about the transparency, credibility, and I think makes us look completely disorganized and completely subverts of all our efforts. That's my comments on that.
Thank you, Adam.
I don't care one way or the other. I'm just saying what it does to us.
I have a comment to that comment.
Great, Paige. Let me restart my clock. Go ahead.
Yes, I would just like to note that Regina and I are working on that project as a volunteer passion project. And so it has in no way connected to this parking advisory board or within the purview of Pacific Beach. It's more of a city and Parks and Recs proposal that we're putting forth. And we've worked on a number of actions together as friends and community members. And so if folks want to have conversations about the safe lot, I feel like it's maybe not as appropriate as it doesn't pertain to this group, but would welcome those conversations.
Seconded. Any other board members have comments? I'm not seeing anyone.
Yeah, Regina, this is Jonathan
Gordon
Cole.
has
I just
it.
want to let you know,
Gordon
I
has-
I just want to let you know that I wasn't called for roll call. Sorry, from PB Planning Group.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Gordon, you have 5 minutes in the next couple items here. Do you need more time?
But this is a different subject.
Okay,
I want to get back into the the survey that I talked about last month, because a comment was made that the survey wasn't ready to go out and the survey wasn't done yet and it wasn't supposed to go out. The plan was always that this survey was going to be done and then we were going to publicize it to all the other committees and to put it in the Beach Bay Reporter. And that's what we were going to do. We went on for 4 months. We were collecting surveys. We stopped getting surveys in. So we decided to go ahead with our plan to distribute with the results. So we made up, Sarah did a lot of this work and she made up a presentation. It's 12 pages long. Everybody in the committee approved of it. So our first meeting was with the planning group. We went in there and gave the presentation, and that was about it. That killed it. After that, we weren't giving any more presentations. The next presentation was supposed to be at the town council. I went to the meeting and it wasn't presented. I went a month later and it wasn't presented. It's more like when we first put it out, what people saw in there, they didn't like it, so it's not going to go out anymore. And that's really what happened to it.
anything else, Gordon?
So I did have another thing to say.
You've
There
got
was, when I was
15
going through
seconds.
this, huh?
You've got
I
another
got-
15 seconds. I'll give
Well,
you
you might be
30.
interested in this one. When I was going through this, I saw some things in the presentation that apply to what we're doing today. And one of the things was, one of the questions was, would you like to take the trolley to work? 30% of the people said yes, they would like to take the trolley to work.
Okay,
But just let me say two more things. Now, they also, would you like to take the trolley for pleasure? Okay, there's a good deal. 70% said yes. Baseball games, going downtown, football, whatever. So 70% of the people said, yeah, they'd like to take the trolley. And then the last one was, would you take a free shuttle to the trolley? 80% yes. I have some other things to say, but I get them later.
great. Thank you for your committee member comments.
So initially, I wanted to make that question part of the non-agenda items was the parking, your parking encampment. There was something else I wanted to say for committee. Did you just combine those or?
No, this is non-agenda committee member comment, and the parking lot is not a part of this committee, nor is it on our agenda.
Okay, so have we gotten to agenda item number 3 then yet? So is that committee member comments?
That's what we're on right now.
So we're going to that now.
We're in it.
Oh, okay. I was speaking on non-agenda public comments when I,
Well, okay, this is committee member comment. So it would, you as a committee member would fall under this line item.
okay, so then can I say something right now then?
Sure.
Oh, okay. So I wasn't able to attend the first part of last month's meeting. I got tied up with a project, but something I wanted to bring up was something that happened in the previous meeting in February was when we found out that there was a massive increase in what the city was taking off the top of 10%. So for the last 2 years plus, we've been told by numerous organizations from Sarah Burns to Councilwoman Campbell's office to the parking meter people themselves that it was 20%. Then after all you guys do all this work, you go out to all these community boards, you put your neck out on the line, you put your voice out on the line, then suddenly it changes from 20% off the top to 30% off the top. Now that's a 10% increase. That's a lot of money we're talking about. And this goes back to what he was just saying before about transparency and openness. I mean, that's like going into a bank and then them telling you, oh, sorry, it's 10% more today after we've kind of done the deals and everything like that. And this is another reason why I don't support these programs, because it's 10% more today. And then in the future, they're going to change the deal again. This is why you can't trust them. And this is, I brought this up before. It's, this is ridiculous. Like that should have been, I could understand if it was one person gave us the wrong number, but this was multiple people in multiple meetings saying 20% over and over and over again for almost 2 years straight. And then suddenly it changes to 30%. So are we looking into why that change came about?
Thank you for your committee member comment. I hope to have somebody from the city attend a meeting and we can ask them those questions directly. And I will make it an information item that we can have an exchange over, because I do think that's important to clarify.
Why are we still continuing meetings without?
Hold on,
this
Adam,
information?
I'm trying to run this under certain rules and regulations, and you've had 2 minutes.
I know, but we need some information, Regina. I'm sorry.
Agreed, and we are going to get it. Are there any other committee members who haven't had a chance to speak who would like to do so? All right, moving on to the chair report. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to be recording these meetings. I'm kind of following the lead of the PB planning group. The Brown Act states that local public meetings must be transparent and public. And while recording a meeting is not necessary to comply with those rules of the Brown Act, posting these meetings for the public increases our transparency and it helps build trust. It is my hope that these recordings bring more public support and participation to our meetings. We already benefit from a record of public comments submitted by email, committee member comments reflected in meeting minutes, and the agendas and the committee action that we send to the city council for review. And as a bonus, these are going to be able to be reviewed by people who can't make the meeting. These recordings are going to become part of the public record. An update from the city, the pilot and the budget are making their way through the city right now, through all the necessary departments. The permit process is going on, as well as the Coastal Commission review. This may be heard at committee in June, in May, and then full council in June. I'm not sure exactly which days yet, but I will send out an email as soon as I hear anything to all committee members. Now we can approve the March minutes, March 9th, 2021. Do we have a motion to approve? Anyone?
This is Jesse. I motion to approve.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second, Tim.
Thank you, Tim. There's a second to approve the March 9th minutes. Are there any comments or questions? Those in favor, please raise your hands. Paige, Jesse, Tim, John, Jonathan Cole, Brian Curry,
I abstain. I was not there.
Billy abstains.
I abstain.
Jane is there, approves. Those against? And any abstentions? John C., Adam Huntington. If you could keep your hands up, I'm scrolling through these pictures. And Billy. All right, the minutes pass. Now we have an information item from committee member Gordon Froehlich titled Parking Revenue Spending. Gordon, do you need to share your screen?
Pardon me?
Do you need to share your screen?
I think I'm on.
Okay. You have the floor for 5 minutes.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out what happened to our committee, you know. It was always, we need money to fix up Garnett. We need to clean it up and fix it up. And there was always like drawings of these beautiful streets and a picture of Hermosa Beach. I can't figure out what happened to, we're not talking about fixing up Garnett anymore. Of all the money we're gonna spend, it's what, 42,000, and that's mainly for safety. We're gonna spend like 50,000 just to for Discover PB to run things. This is expensive. We have 50,000 and then we get 40,000 for the street. Then I look at some of the figures, and I was looking through all this stuff that has been sent out about all the numbers of how much this, how much that. I look at something like one of the things that said we're going to have 125,000 for the shuttle. Now is that right? I'm not sure. That's what I picked up. But six buses runs 292,000. I don't see how that all works out. Are we getting money from the city or something? Well, that's kind of the main part of my what I'm wondering about. And I'm wondering, like Brian, you've always said we got to fix up Garnett, and we're not going to get any money from the city. Now it looks like you're not going to get any money from the parking committee, the parking district. So I'm kind of wondering, what do you think about this change from fixing up Garnett to what we're now mainly going to be a bus company?
Gordon, as an information item, this is your opportunity to present your findings to the committee. We'll have time for questions afterwards.
Okay.
We're 2 minutes.
I did want to mention, well, there is one other survey I found when I was looking through all my papers. I found one done by the Save PB, and it was a small one. It's only like like 80, I think it was 86 people. It just went out to their website, and there they asked people to list their concerns for Pacific Beach, and they came out and then rank them or how many people were for each one, and there were 17 different concerns, and they ranked in order of importance. And parking problems was number 9. There didn't seem to be a lot of concern about parking problems. The ones below that were really like not much you've ever heard about. I saw this this letter to the editor on the Beach and Bay Press website today. I don't know if anybody else saw that. And this lady was concerned about the slow streets. And I'm not advocating either way on slow streets. But her big concern was they just come into the community and they say, this is going to be your slow street. And they don't ask the neighborhood. They don't announce it's coming or anything like that. And she's had some very big major opinions about the whole thing. But actually we did it right. We had the survey and we got people of the community's opinions. The only problem is we're ignoring it. That's all I got today.
Thank you, Gordon. Brian Curry, he mentioned you by name. Do you want to have a comment?
Well, at this point, I don't even think it's worth debating how the money's going to be spent, or we've submitted a budget. We don't even have an approved program yet. I'd love to have the problem and discussion on how we want to spend our money. We've had those discussions preliminarily. We had to submit a budget. So here we are today. But at this point, we don't have a penny to spend. So to me, it's needless waste of time to pursue it right now. We need to pursue getting our pilot program approved with the city, and then let's all have fun spending our money. So that's sort of how I see it right now. And improvements on Garnet, our business district, absolutely. I'm all in favor, and I'd love that to be part of our budget. So let's get let's get a program together, get some money together, and put together a final budget once we have that opportunity. Thanks.
I think that's the problem. We're just going too fast into this thing, trying to get it done during the pandemic. I know, are we going to go out and put parking meters in people's restaurants?
Anyway, the parking advisory group voted in favor of the pilot program. Now it's at the city. It's at the city. So as far as I'm concerned, there's no more debate here on whether we're going to have a pilot program. We've already voted in favor of it. And that to me is also just a needless waste of our time at these meetings. I'd like to pursue ahead. We're more than just a parking meter subcommittee. We are an entire parking district committee. So there's a lot to discuss, and that's just one, just one particular item within a slew of larger items and issues in Pacific Beach. Thanks.
Thank you, Gordon, and thank you, Brian. Speaking of a slew of more things, I'd like to move on to item 7, the San Diego Bike Coalition and Bike Master Plan. This is an information item provided by Jacob Mendel. He's the advocacy manager for the San Diego Bike Coalition. Hi, Jacob. You have the floor.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I've been at your meetings once before, and I'm always very impressed with how amazing this community is in Pacific Beach. It's such a great part of town, and I'm really excited to be here today to speak to you a little bit about San Diego Bicycle Coalition and the Bike Master Plan. I was reading in your pilot proposal about demonstrations of maybe tactical urbanism and some ways that that this parking committee is able to spend its money on those projects. And so I wanted to give a quick update on some ideas that I've had as the advocacy manager at the Bicycle Coalition, and then speak to you all about some feedback and making sure that your voices are heard in your community. Can we go to the next slide? So I just wanted to quickly, I'm going to back up really fast. The San Diego County Bicycle Coalition, we advocate for safe bicycle riding throughout the county. I work all over the county to make sure that anybody can get to and where they're going safely on a bicycle. So I wanted to take a moment and show the county bicycle map here. And as you can see, there's a lot of great connections to and from Pacific Beach by using bikes. If you look, you can get on bike lanes going into La Jolla. You can go south towards Mission Beach. You can also go south towards Mission Bay and Claremont areas. I'm not controlling this. If I could, I would highlight there's a Rose Creek, which is that dotted line on the top there, is coming online in the next few months, providing a very crucial bike connection between UCSD and the beach area. We're very excited to see that come online. And when I look at this map, I look at opportunity. I see an opportunity for this committee, as well as the residents of Pacific Beach, to advocate for more safe bike areas, bike facilities in the neighborhood. And so there's an opportunity here for your committee to really encourage more usage of bikes in Pacific Beach. We already know it's a great place to walk, a great place to bike, but there's a lot of improvements that can be made. And I noticed that in the beginning, there was a goal that was stated that for this committee that was encouraging multiple modes of transportation, including walking, bikes, and public transit. And when I was reading through your proposal, I wanted to talk a little bit about bike parking, because I think that's a really great opportunity for this committee to really take the lead on making sure that bikes can park and people can ride safely and park safely in the community. So I went on Google Street View and I took a couple of pictures of what bike parking looks like. On the upper left-hand side, you have sort of those tiny little bike, they kind of look like U, upside down U shape. You can lock your bike up there. Top right-hand side, you have the bike corrals, which are maintained by the business district there, which are also great. You also have people parking their bikes all over. In this, I saw a bike on Google Street View that was tied up here to this apartment building, as well as a bike that's in the bottom right corner, tied up to a street pole. And these are great starts, but I think that your committee has the opportunity to really expand what that looks like in Pacific Beach. And so if we can move to the next slide, I heard a couple of ideas of maybe what this could look like. I understand that in the pilot, you asked for some demonstrations of it. So I wanted to make sure to include two of these. On the top are in San Diego, currently in use, Go By Bike. So the first one on the top left-hand corner is at the Sabre Springs transit station. It's a pretty big facility where you can walk in and store your bike. It's free with a $25 key deposit. So you get a key for $25 from Go By Bike, and you can slide your key in there and park your bike. On the right upper hand side, you see a good example of what Go By Bike has at trolley stations. So those are secure bike parking. You can just put your bike directly in that locker with the key and get onto your destination, knowing that your bike will be safely there when you return. On the bottom, I also included two just concepts of some other things that you could think of, this committee could consider. On the bottom left is a startup that is taking over parking spots and putting these pretty interesting designed safe bike parking spaces. And I would say that's probably on the higher end of what would be what I would think of this committee putting in. There's also a very low end option, which are these bike lids. They're little plastic things that cover your bike up and you can sort of push your bike in there and lock it up. So just a couple of examples. And if we could just go on to the next slide. I thought of this idea because I think it solves a couple of quality of life issues in the community. And I mean, I'm just hearing it come up in some of these issues come up even in this meeting. So the first is that it puts safe bike parking in and it removes it from other infrastructure. I know there's a lot of problems with like scooters on the street and bikes just being locked up to street signs or light poles. And so I think that could be a really good way to remove bikes from that infrastructure. And they can come in all shapes and sizes. Like I showed you, there's anything the size of a big building to a tiny little bike bike lid. And that would allow residents and businesses in front of it to say, hey, this is what we want in front of our business. This is what we think looks best for the community. If we can move on one more. it also meets that goal of encouraging bicycles as a form of transportation, reducing congestion in your neighborhood, which I know in Pacific Beach, especially if you're going there on the weekend, it is very hard to get around in a car. So anything that we can do to reduce congestion in your neighborhood, I think would be a big positive. And then also, and I've heard this a lot from people in the beach communities, that there's a huge problem with theft of bicycles. And this is one way that we can remove the opportunity of bike theft, and we can free up those public safety resources for other uses in your community. I'm not sure if there was a last one in there.
Oh, that was it.
Gotcha. But just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to come and present to you. I'm going to start being a part of these meetings more often, and I would like to work with all of you to suggest how your committee can spend money on some tactical urbanism. So thanks for having me. I can take some questions if that's appropriate, or if not.
Anybody? Adam.
Hey, thanks for that presentation. That's really great. These look like some futuristic next gen ideas. I'm assuming that this Go by Bike is going to be some kind of contract that we have to pay for the storage facilities and the data and the keys and all this, et cetera. Do you have an idea on what that cost is going to be annually? And then also, let's talk about security for real. And while this is being proposed as a security idea, a $25 key, we're working with next level criminals in our district here. And these aren't just bike thieves that come up and snip a lock. This is a multi-faceted crime organization. They've got numerous ways to steal our bikes, and a $25 key, I just don't think is, I think they'll get a few of their guys a $25 key. They'll come in there and just start removing bikes, honestly. We've got a serious situation in this neighborhood. And I think, honestly, putting dollars towards actual security people would probably be a more effective route, or, getting the city to actually staff our police force to make sure we have, regular security where these bikes are going to be kept, because this is a serious problem that just hasn't been addressed by the city, and we're probably going to have to address it ourselves. So just a little bit of just a couple thoughts on that, and that's it.
Yeah, thanks, Adam, for your feedback. And I just wanted to quickly answer. I haven't come prepared with the cost estimates. It was just more of a conceptual idea. I know that we're waiting on the city council to go through with your proposal, and once they do, I'll be able to come back, and hopefully the city will be able to also provide more input, and maybe Sandak Go by Bike would. And yeah, I certainly hear you on the security issues, and we have found at the Bicycle Coalition that a lot of the theft, at least of bikes, is typically a opportunity. You see the bike, it's there, you can take it. And so removing that possibility is one of the ways that we think would reduce theft in your neighborhood. But I do hear you, and I do recognize your concern towards that.
Thank you.
John C.
Can you pull back up that slide with the examples of, I don't know who's running
Me. I hope I can. Hang on, I'm dealing with this new mouse and I'm feeling very old.
So you basically had the four proposals of types of devices. From those images themselves, though, they looked pretty bulky. That's, a regular, see, here's the issue. When we put up a bike rack in town, you can actually fit a lot of bikes to a bike rack. So in the top left corner, how many bikes can fit in the Go Bike building right there? Do you know off the top of your head, Jacob?
I want to tell you a number. I don't want to be wrong and give you the wrong number. Off the top of my head, I would say 16.
16.
bikes.
How about the one on the right-hand side, top right, those silver containers? Is each one of those just for one bike?
Just a single bike as far as I'm aware, yes.
Those look, are those pretty to scale on a regular like mountain bike, or because they look pretty big?
They are pretty, yes, they are pretty large. And yes, they would take up a lot of space. And I certainly hear that concern. I mean, parking and space in Pacific Beach is a very hard thing to come by. And so I definitely hear your concern. They are quite large.
Have you spoken with the MTS about doing these things up by the new trolley station at all that's going in? Do they have space allocated for this?
Regina, maybe I haven't had individual
They do.
conversations, but I think they do. I would be pretty surprised if they don't. Because
Yeah,
they're typically found at trolley stations throughout and transit stations throughout the county.
That's a great point, John. I think Sandag does have a plan for those. I'll ask them. And
The
get
other
back.
thing is I just want to reinforce what Adam was saying. And just so basically the police have been doing these task force meetings with us. We are dealing, I've been in town and I've seen the bike theft and it's always been there, but this is on a whole nother level. This is an organized criminal circuit. And basically what's happening is that they're stealing the bikes to fund the drugs. So they steal the bikes, they create these chop shops. And then as soon as the chop shop's set up, then the meth, fentanyl, and heroin dealers are in there right away to basically, as these guys get cash for the bicycles at 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks a piece, then they're buying and using the drugs. Then these transients are going and using the drugs open air next to McDonald's, next to the V outlet, next to all these different places. So this is a massive, I agree with you that it was an opportunity thing in the past, but no, this is, they're coming into people's backyards now. They're hopping over fences, moving bikes over fences, anything. And if you speak with people in the community, nobody can lock their bike up anywhere anymore. Because if you go out at night around 2 a.m. to 4 a.m, there's probably about a dozen to 24 people that are just stealing bikes all night long in the neighborhoods. This is a real serious issue. And it seems like a lot of it has to do with, number one, people in the community are not reporting their bikes getting stolen. They have to put their report number with their bike ID number, because when the cops are finding these bikes, they can't do anything. And number two, the police are just completely understaffed and they're underfunded. They're so stretched, so thin at this point. In this last task force meeting, a person was asking them why they had a phone call of a guy with a machete chasing kids in Mission Beach, and no cops responded to that call at all. And this was in the middle of the day because all the police were pulled to a house with somebody with a gun inside of a house.
John, do you have a question specifically for Jacob? I just want to be mindful of his time.
No, I'm just saying, I'm reinforcing what Adam's saying in this. That's what I was saying.
John, I certainly hear your concerns, and I'll put in my email in the chat, and we can certainly have further conversations about this. I definitely hear your concerns about bike theft in the community, and that's my concern too. As a bike advocate, I don't want people's bikes to get stolen, and so that's why I came to you here with this proposal, and I'd like to continue working with this group to prevent bike theft in the neighborhood. I will also suggest, sorry, just one last thing. I will suggest, I'll put it in the chat box below, that there's we're recommending everybody in the county register their bikes on a program called Bike Index, just to make sure that when your bike gets stolen, it provides a good, you get basically a report, and it'll go out to the entire community who's on Bike Index here. And we've been very successful in recovering bikes through that program. So I will also put that in the chat.
I do have one last question for you.
But wait, can I let Paige ask a question?
Sure.
Thank you. She hasn't had a chance yet.
Yeah, it's kind of more of a question - comment, really more of a comment. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for your presentation. And I would love to continue this conversation about expanding bike use and parking specifically within Pacific Beach. I think this could also be a really great conversation with the PB planning group. And there are opportunities to ask developers to fund some of these bike parking solutions as we increase multifamily and mixed use buildings. So I, for one, am a renter. I live in a multifamily building, and we just lost all of our bike storage to Amazon package delivery sites. So I know that there's folks in Crown Point who want to ride our bikes and go into the PD business district area, but storing bikes in Crown Point specifically has been quite a challenge. So I look forward to hearing more about some of the solutions and working with you.
They may have taken the parking away, the bike parking, the mass corrals in the multifamily buildings, because those have been specifically targeted by the criminals and they're being cleared out. But I also want to congratulate our little government group here. Is the only government group in San Diego actually talking about this problem publicly.
John, back to you.
So have you reached out to, the one thing we have an abundance of in Pacific Beach is paid parking lots. We have a ton of them off the Garnett business area that are very underused. That's a big issue with our committee. Have you reached out to Ace Parking to see if maybe they would be interested in housing some of these kind of bulky bike lock systems inside these parking lot areas, like getting 2 or 3 in every single lot?
Yes, that's a great question. I have not, but that's why, I like coming to these things, because I get to hear from residents about things that I would have never been aware of beforehand. And that's absolutely something that I can look into for you. Absolutely.
Cool, because space is very limited on Garnett itself. I can't imagine putting any of these things on Garnett Business District on the sidewalks and stuff, but there's a lot of empty lots in town.
I will take a look. And if there's any last questions, I'd be happy to take them. But if not, thank you all for the opportunity to present to you. And I'll throw in.
Brian Curry has a question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, just I think bicycles over traffic. I'm totally on board with bikes, and I think the sustainable nature of it, and just it's a great thing. It's a healthy lifestyle. I don't know if you're aware of the PB Pathways project.
I am.
Okay, so you got to get that into your map that you're showing, because that beautiful PB, I mean, we've been down this road for years, trying to advocate more for bicycles, putting in sharrows, getting the pathways in place. And I just think if all of our different groups are on the same page, sometimes we all say this is a great idea, but we don't know what other groups are doing. And so, before this particular subcommittee runs off on a bicycle project, it'd be great to reach out to like Carl Rand with the planning group and beautiful PB, just to make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel, and that we can do this together. Because if there's one thing that causes friction and get anything done in the city of San Diego, it's departments not knowing what other departments are doing, and master plans being made separate from other master plans and bike plans and pedestrian plans, and all of it being done independently as opposed to in unity together. So at least we can do that here as the community groups. So if we ever pursue something like a subcommittee on bicycles in this group, that subcommittee should reach out to Carl's planning group committee and get someone from there. We should reach out to beautiful PB and get somebody from there, so that we're all reporting back, right? And that we can coordinate these efforts, because right now I'd like to get more beautiful PB pathways in Pacific Beach, safer places for people to bicycle. Very important.
I absolutely agree. The PV path. Well, first off, I didn't actually recognize Carl because I haven't seen him with a beard, and I've known him for a long time. But the PV pathway is not on. That's a Sandag map that I presented, so it's not on. I'm not necessarily sure why it's not on that map, but I certainly agree with you. I think that we should be, as a community, should be building more safe, protected pathways for people to ride, like the PB pathways. So I'd be more than happy to reach out to Carl and continue coming to these meetings to listen and be a part of that. So.
Cool. I just want it on your map just to give us credit for doing something around here, so it's not all Sandag in their bicycle. I mean, PB, we've been trying to get it done, and we're doing it. We have them out there. We have signs up. We have sharrows on the road. So that's next presentation. Just have it on there.
I'll make sure. I'm gonna have to draw it in with some Photoshop or something.
Adam, you had one thing to say? Oh no, he's good. All right, Jacob, welcome.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you more often.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, next presentation. This is item 8. It's the proposed parking reform for San Diego. And presenting, we have Tanner French. He's the senior traffic engineer with the city of San Diego. Thanks for staying late and hanging out with us, Tanner. I think you can share your screen.
There you go. How's that?
Great.
You seeing the presentation there? Might be muted. Hold on here. Sorry.
Looks good.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I'm not muted.
Yep.
Sorry, it switched gears on me there. Okay. So, hey everybody. I'm Tanner French. As Regina mentioned, a senior traffic engineer in the city's mobility department. And thank you, Regina, for the introduction and allowing me to share this parking policy reform. project with you guys. I do have a short presentation, should take less than 10 minutes. And hopefully, like we just discussed, everybody can see my screen there. So for this project, we're evaluating a reduction of parking requirements for non-residential land uses within transit priority areas and for neighborhoods serving commercial land uses citywide. This effort is complementary to many of the city's previous efforts, most immediately the recently completed effort to reduce parking requirements for multifamily residential developments within transit priority areas, and also the city's climate action plan and complete communities mobility choices projects. So together, these really represent kind of a comprehensive effort from the city to change mobility policy to better reflect our climate and long-range mobility goals. So why parking policy reform? Phase one really focused on the multifamily housing and addressed housing affordability and the trip origin. And this phase addresses reducing the reliance on single occupancy vehicles and the subsequent reduction in vehicle miles traveled and greenhouse gases and traffic congestion. So we're really dealing with the trip destination. So in combination, we'll have addressed kind of the full round trip that San Diegans make throughout their day. Okay, so the project is also in line with many of the city's initiatives, such as the general plan and the City of Villages strategy, which support putting a mix of housing options near employment and especially near frequent transit. The climate action plan, which identifies a path forward for the city to reduce vehicle miles traveled and commute mode share, which active transportation, in other words, and complete communities and Vision Zero, which focus on creating communities that are connected, sustainable, and safe while providing community amenities that make those real possibilities. And also focusing in areas near frequent transit, namely transit priority areas, will help the city achieve its goals by providing comparable options for trips to be made on foot and bike and transit rather than in a single occupancy vehicle. So we're also mindful of the cost associated with providing parking. The average cost for a surface parking lot is about $25,000 per space. So that equates to $500,000 just to build 20 parking spaces. And the cost of parking can indirectly raise the cost of goods and services. So just a couple slides on kind of space and building design. The current parking requirements dictate a set amount of space that must be dedicated to parking cars. And we acknowledge that often this can result, you know what, there we go. We acknowledge that often this can result in like, up to a half a parcel being allocated just to pave parking lots, leaving less space for the actual businesses and for public spaces. So this policy is looking to achieve better utilization of land and allowing more flexibility with businesses to use their properties as in ways that they see fit. And this slide really just kind of represents the amenities that you can provide in the existing condition versus when you're able to provide how much parking you want to provide, the amenities that you can provide kind of in that hopefully the possible phase. This policy is also hoping to achieve better site design. This is an example of a strip mall that, in order to meet their current parking requirements, they've provided head-in parking. And this creates an uncomfortable condition for pedestrians and bicyclists that have to make their way along a long driveway, making themselves vulnerable to vehicles that are backing out of the parking lot. So just an example of, if you don't have to provide the parking, you can kind of orient your business in a more, suitable manner. So with this update, businesses can look more like this. We can, the parking policy will work in tandem with other initiatives, helping neighborhoods become more walkable and less auto-centric. Currently, outdoor dining has been a popular way of utilizing the parking spaces during the pandemic and for that expansion. And this policy would continue to allow for that use to occur. So just a few quick slides on kind of the technical aspect of the project. The technical aspect was really a three-pronged approach. And the first was a review of national and local studies that show and prove that reduction of parking availability equates to a reduction in vehicular use. And that's especially true when paired with other initiatives, other transportation demand management initiatives and strategies aimed at incentivizing other modes of travel. So to that end, the second approach was an evaluation of Sandag's local transportation demand management program called iCommute, and data from their program showed that when employers provide these incentives, there was a reduction in vehicular use, which is what we're looking for. The third aspect was an evaluation of other US cities that have implemented similar policy changes. The peer study showed that the cities who implemented similar changes have seen an increase in non-vehicular modes and therefore less reliance on the vehicle, less vehicle miles traveled, less congestion, etc. The main conclusions from our peer cities study are that peer cities which set forth the most comprehensive parking reduction policies saw the most beneficial results in transit ridership and active transportation. So as you can see from this slide, Seattle and Portland have implemented the most comprehensive policies, and their transit mode share is reflected as having higher ridership than other cities. And here, this is an active transportation graph. Here you can see that the peer cities evaluated, all the peer cities evaluated had a marked increase in active transportation mode share, and that's especially true when compared to San Diego, which is at the bottom of the graph there showed in yellow. So the second portion of kind of how we've structured our project is now moving into this stakeholder outreach phase. So as such, I'm here today to discuss the project with you. Our outreach will be targeted to hopefully all affected parties, the business groups, environmental groups, and communities of concern. And ultimately, the outcome of the project will be a municipal code update where we would recommend 0 parking requirements within transit priority areas for a majority of non-residential land uses. Also, we'll be recommending, as I mentioned earlier, 0 parking requirements for neighborhoods serving commercial land uses. And so on the map here, even though it might be kind of small and difficult to see in the presentation, the map highlights current transit priority areas and those neighborhoods serving commercial land uses where the parking reductions would apply. And I think everybody has access to this, but if not, I can certainly send this map to the group if anybody's interested. So it's also important to note that removing parking requirements doesn't mean that parking won't be built. It really just means that we're removing ourselves from that equation and allowing businesses to choose, what's correct and what, is most suitable for them. And really just kind of, it's allowing the market to set itself in that regard. Okay, so in terms of a timeline, as you can see here, we'll be working to continue our outreach through the rest of April and hopefully reach all the groups that we mentioned earlier. Ultimately, we'd like to have to take the project to City Council for approval sometime this summer. And so, yeah, with that, I'm here to get your feedback and hopefully support for the project. I've included a link to the project webpage on this slide. And you can also feel free to email me directly. I've put my email and Claudia Brizuela's email, who's also a part of the project team, but just not available to attend tonight. And Sunny and Regina can share our project information. So any information you guys need to further this discussion, we're happy to provide. So with that, I'll stop presenting and we can.
Tanner, can you go back to your map real quick?
Yeah, of course.
I just want to point something out. So It's hard to see, but I want everyone who's not aware of it that Pacific Beach
is that zooming in?
Transit priority zone. We're important. and that means that we have a certain number of mobility options coming in or existing. I'm not sure which one it is.
Well, it means that you have transit sufficient that that modes can be made, and you have access to transit, allowing allowing the ability to take transit, or at least a percentage of people to take transit, and therefore not relying on vehicle trips, basically.
Anybody have questions for Tanner? Brian Curry?
Yeah. That entire, is everything in the blue, is that the transit node?
Correct. Let me zoom out. Yeah, the area in the blue hatch is what we're, it's basically the existing and near term transit priority areas. So areas that are served by transit lines that, essentially run up 15-minute headways or less.
Right.
And then all of the red is those neighborhood commercial land uses that we would also include in this proposal.
So are you suggesting, is it just the commercial land use? Or are you talking about, basically the way I see it, almost all of Pacific Beach is in that blue hat, blue.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's really like a half mile around Garnett and Grand. But yes, in the previous effort, multifamily residential was already approved for this. And so we haven't, generally speaking, yes, I would call it, 90% of the other non-residential land uses. There's some that we've evaluated that don't necessarily make sense, like heavy industrial and things like that. But for the most part, yes, it's all of the other non-residential land uses. So,
but not residential, just non-residential.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Okay. You're going to get your outreach done by the end of April. You know how big an issue this is. And before I commend your efforts, because I'm in favor of a lot of this, what happens in our communities is that you as a city comes and makes a presentation here, and the next one you know, it's at city council in about 2 months. And nobody even knew it happened. And the outreach is insufficient, or it's ignored over and over again. It just out and out ignored. Have you been to the planning group?
So we won't be going just for sake of time and just really
for the sake of time. Planning group is what dictates land use in our community and basically implements our community plan. I don't know how you can do this without going to.
So what I was gonna finish was we aren't going to be going to all 48 or 52 community planning groups, but we will be going to CPC, which is the representative body of all the planning groups.
Right. Well, on the positive, when you go down Garnett Avenue, none of that can be redeveloped because it's not feasible to develop because of our parking requirements. So this kind of forward thinking is dynamite in terms of rejuvenating our commercial districts. So on the positive, I totally get that, and I totally agree. What happens though is people like community members like us then have to deal with the community who feel totally uninformed by huge land use changes and municipal code changes. So I would love to be your foot soldier on some of this and be giving the message, but here you're suggesting that all of your outreach is going to be done by April. It's April 13th. It's the first I've heard of this complete change. So there's just a lot to discuss. It's not conforming with our community plan. This municipal code change, it doesn't conform with our community plan. How does that work? We need a new community plan, but I mean, there's a lot. But again, I think it's great that we can make projects feasible by not having parking requirements. It's just that residents come up in arms when all of a sudden the requirements disappear all of a sudden on a residential development down the street or something else. It takes a whole change of mind frame to get away from parking. It's just not going to happen overnight. But I wish you guys would spend some more time on outreach and information and education to the public. It would really help your cause, make the city look better. Thanks.
So I mean, to speak to some of that, I mean, we will end up going to, similarly sized or business groups, or whatever, probably 30 or 40 groups over a 3-month period. So, for what that's worth, and we're happy to, broadcast is as much as we can. But, we also kind of get hit on the other end of that when, you know, the dialogue is always that the city can never get anything done, and we hem and haw. So we try to find that fine line of being efficient and effective, but also communicating. And I will say, just to the larger point, our project timeline is not set in stone. So, you know, if there's other outreach that needs to be done, or that the project team or city management feels that needs to be done, that, you know, it isn't a set in stone deal.
No, I appreciate that, Tanner, and I'm not picking on you at all. It's just discouraging to us when it's a top-down land use plan and one size fits all for the entire city, when there's people like us that are really trying to do the best for our individual communities, and it can't be a bottom-up plan that basically implements really what the community wants. So anyway, but I do appreciate what you're doing.
Carl, you unmuted.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, I just want to second what Brian Curry said, and in a way, the outreach to the planning group and maybe town councils is necessary and probably in itself not sufficient. And if you kind of want to see an example of this dynamic that Brian was just kind of talking about, tomorrow night we're going to have our planning group meeting, our monthly planning group meeting, and the community is absolutely up in arms over a parking issue, and it deals with parking in a proposed development where they're proposing to only have one parking space per unit for 18 units, and the community is absolutely up in arms, and they're screaming that they just don't get informed about things adequately enough in advance. And they clearly want free on-street parking. They don't want to pay for it. They want as much of it as they can get. They don't understand what was mentioned earlier about the idea that if you build it, they will come, and if you and if you take it away, then maybe people will start considering other forms of transportation. Right now is a particularly awful time, in part because the trolley station we're on the cusp of the trolley station, but it's not here yet. And, you know, maybe over time it will help, bring about some change, but it's not here yet. And so anyway, I just wanted to invite you, Tanner, if you want to see how this works at the ground level, then tomorrow evening, there's going to be a planning group meeting where you'll really see. And people are not going to be saying nice things about the way the city is making these changes. Thanks, Regina.
I will say that I might not be able to join tomorrow, but I'm actually a PB resident, so I've been involved in some of the meetings, and just generally speaking, I've been involved in this long enough that I've seen what the communities can give. I'll just leave it at that.
John Kakuza.
So I got a question. A lot of this stuff is new to me. It sounds like this has been going on with the planning group and the commercial district for a long time. So basically what your proposal is to change the building constructions of the buildings on Garnett. Is that what Brian was saying, that they can't update the buildings on Garnett because of the parking restrictions? So we have a lot of super old buildings on Garnett, and they can't basically knock those down and put modern buildings because of the parking requirements?
My point, John, was that it's not feasible. The way the current zoning is and parking requirements, you'd have to go underground to park a new development.
Yeah.
And so nobody can afford to do that and build a feasible project. If you take away the parking requirement, now you can redevelop. It's feasible to redevelop, maybe with ground level retail on units above, if you don't require parking, right? And now you have a rejuvenated Garnett business district, but right now it's not feasible because of the parking.
So in our ad hoc committee on residential parking permits, I brought this up. It seemed like one of the big issues is, this goes back to what Carl was saying, that the residents want to be able to park on the streets. And something that happened in my old community back in Jersey after Hurricane Sandy wiped everything out was they just rezoned it. And basically they've just raised everything up off the ground. So the ground floor you can no longer live in. And all of that has now become residential parking underneath the dwellings, which then freed up just tons of spaces on the roads. So my question for Tanner is that if this is an issue with parking, has there been discussions in this proposal to do what Brian was saying, whereas we redevelop these commercial spaces on Garnett to go to second floors, which would open up all that area underneath for ground level parking, or in a situation where it would be a redevelopment of something like a promenade. The PB Promenade is fantastic because you have all of that underground parking underneath the building as well. So, and do you guys talk about that as well for impacting the residential areas, doing something? We have so much development. They're knocking down single family dwellings and putting up these multi-unit places. You know, I don't see why they can't just go up to the maximum height level and then leave that space underneath for all cars to park underneath the buildings.
So what I will say is the scenario that you talked about with raising everything up and having certain service level parking, to my knowledge, that is available to any development that wants to do it right now. The problem is it's incredibly cost prohibitive. So that's why you're not seeing it right now. And just to reiterate what this project is to change the municipal code so that those developments don't have a parking requirement, right? Right now, if you build X amount of square feet, you multiply it by what the code says you need to build, and boom, you have to provide 12 parking spaces. That's what the code says, that's what the city says. This would be eliminating that requirement. You could still build 12 if you want, if you have the space and you think it's the best for your building, but the municipal code no longer requires that. You can build 0 with, you know, if you're in the transit priority area, if you're the correct land use type, you can build 0, or you could build 12. You can build anywhere, you know, in between that number.
So so we're a parking committee now, and a lot of this stuff that we've done for the last several years has been on putting in meters on Garnett, because we've been told that parking is a huge issue on Garnett. So basically what you guys want to do is eliminate parking for these businesses, which would then create more of a demand, wouldn't it? I mean, we would have even less spaces. Is that
certainly there is the possibility, if enough development chooses not to build it, that it would create additional, you know, demand for the on-street spaces. But, you know, there are always ways to continue to mitigate parking impacts like that. And you guys have a community parking district that works with that. And hopefully there's some funding available, or, you know, kind of allocated to continue that fight with you guys. But
yeah, because if a business has a parking lot in the back of its business, then if they decide that they're going to remodel and just suddenly they have no requirements, they're going to remove 6 spaces, then that's 6 more cars that are going to go out onto the road potentially, isn't it?
Well, part of the study that I discussed, or part of, you know, the research that we're doing, is hopefully it's not 6 more cars that go on the road. It's a percentage of those people will likely, or hopefully, get there without their car. And that's kind of the shift that we're trying to do. And that's why the transit priority areas is so important, because you have to have the transit infrastructure on top of these things to allow that mode shift that we're trying.
Okay.
Katie has a question.
Really more of a comment, and sorry, I'm at my kids' softball game, so if you hear cheering in the background, that's what's going on. So first of all, I totally support this classic correct parking policy. Every bit of research supports this kind of market-driven change to parking policy. This isn't social engineering. This is actually conservative economics, saying the market should drive the parking, not, you know, a number picked out of thin air, which is basically what parking requirements are now. But to Brian Curry's point, I hear what you're saying about the outreach. I actually think that's on us. I think we are, Tanner has to go to the entire city. It's a big city. I think we need to be doing the job to educate and outreach to our community about these issues and explain what's driving this parking policy. Why would this even make sense? This is something that we have to do the education of our community around. So, I think we should do what we can to take that burden on ourselves. And I will mute myself so that you don't hear small children in the background.
Does anybody else have any questions? Adam?
Just real quick, Tanner, thanks for the presentation. As far as the meetings that you guys selected to go do your outreach, do you know who selected those meetings? Like who set the agenda for which groups you're going to go talk to? I assume it was above you.
No, not necessarily. I mean, like I said, we've identified certain groups. So I mean, it was our project team, and like Katie mentioned quickly, between planning groups and I mean every entity there is citywide, it's hundreds and hundreds of groups. So we're doing the best that we can to connect with the affected stakeholders, basically.
It's confusing because we've got the height limit that was removed, and none of the planning groups were consulted on that, and I'm just wondering why at the city level somebody's making the decision to effectively do end runs around the community planning groups. That's really my main concern, because we can do better than that, and I don't think it's really that hard to include the community planning groups, and it just seems like a big black eye for the city for no reason. Seems like there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and I don't think San Diegans like that very much.
Yeah, I can only speak for this project, and I can just say that we did an honest effort to outreach to as many groups as we can, and sometimes doing 52 or whatever the number of communities there are currently is it really just is not a suitable. It's not a suitable thing to do, given project deadlines and just, efficiency of work.
Understood. Would we be able to get a copy of that list that you guys are going to be presenting to, so we can try to attend those meetings?
Yeah, I can share with Sunny and Regina our outreach list.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Appreciate your help.
I just want to say how awesome it is to have a city engineer at our parking advisory committee meeting. I'm really thankful for your time. And also it was really easy to get in touch with you and ask you to come, which is great. I went directly to Tanner and he said yes. So thank you. And thank you for being a PB resident. That's incredibly helpful. Any more questions or comments? Awesome, because the next thing is going to be a motion to approve the next meeting on May 11th at 5:30.
A motion.
There a motion? Oh, Tim, second. Adam? All those in favor? John, Kukuzo, Jesse. Everybody's moving around. Paige, Gordon, Billy, Jane, Brian Curry, Tim Prusner. That's everyone. Thanks, guys. We did it. It's 6:45. I appreciate all of your time, and I hope to have more guest speakers. Hi, Billy. Oh, you're waving goodbye. Oh, Pascal, you're muted. Oh.
Excuse me. I'm just a resident. I'm no part of any committee. I just have one quick question for you, because we're discussing today the use of money from the parking, and that money would partially, from what I understand, pay for the van or the transportation from one point to another one. So that would explain why we would use the meters. which I'm not necessarily in favor of because I live very close to the Garnet area. So seeing that there will be less parking, that the parking that is available is going to be metered, I feel like my street is going to be backed up. But that probably is a different issue today. What I wanted to say is that if there is no need for parking anymore when you build big buildings, and you can have, because of the transit system and the ease of transportation, if you can have no parking with buildings, is there a point in having meters at this point? Because you're not going to be able to pay for anything with no parking.
I'm processing your question. So first of all, the meters, the meter district, the paid parking is in the current 2-hour commercial zone. So people can only park there right now for 2 hours. What the meter district will be doing is charging those people to park 2 hours.
What if with the new regulation, you don't have to have parking lots? You don't have to have parking in front of businesses.
Those are the business specific parking lots. So that's not something that, those are private property.
Okay, so what if you have your system is successful, you have many people using the transit system and using less of the parking meters, the paying parking? Who's going to pay for the expenses that are related to the van or the transit system to and from the transit station?
That's a great question. And I have that question too. Currently what we're proposing is a year-long pilot. It's hasn't gone to city council yet. And what Tanner was just presenting is something that's also in the works. It hasn't been confirmed by city council. And I don't know if they're going to happen in tandem or one after the other. We're just trying to get as informed as we can. So you're asking a lot of great questions, but I don't think any of us have the answer.
Very concerning as a citizen to see the high limit removed, no parking necessary just because we're building a transit station. There is no guarantee that people are going to use buses. It's not in the culture today, so it's going to take time for people to get used to a new system while they already have cars. So if you have buildings that are super high with no parking, the rest of the parking is paying, then I'm assuming that people are going to park in streets surrounding Garnet.
I love what you're asking. I need to adjourn this meeting. And I would love to talk to you offline and in person about this too. I'm putting my email in the chat. If you could email me, I would like to list these questions and then present them to Tanner and have them answered because they're great questions and I share them.
Okay, let me get back to your email.
And the meeting is adjourned for everyone who's hanging out, even though it's nice to hang out and see people's faces.
Yeah, it's important to be able to ask questions.
Absolutely. Yeah, I share your questions. So.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, meeting adjourned, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you, Regina. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, Jean.